Hello friends, my name is JJ, and I've got something of an unusual video for you today. As you know, there has been a lot of talk about conspiracy theories lately, and the degree that they seem to be playing a larger and larger role in our culture and politics these days. This is honestly something that troubles me a fair bit, particularly the degree that a lot of young people are sort of getting swept up or radicalized by a lot of this stuff online. Anyway, a while ago I made a video about the so-called Mandela effect. The Mandela effect began as an obscure academic theory about bad memories, but has since metastasized into this absurd conspiracy theory about parallel universes and breaks in the space-time continuum and whatnot. So this TikTok kid named MJ reached out to me and said he wanted to interview me about it for his channel, and I agreed. His channel is pretty small and it's mostly about this kind of conspiracy theory, paranormal kind of stuff, although I understand he is a bigger deal on the TikTok. And we spent a fair bit of time chatting, and as it went on, I got more and more aggressive in my criticisms, and I started to treat this kid as basically a kind of symbol for a lot of what I don't like about online conspiracy theory culture. Because this is something I feel strongly about, I decided to post our full unedited conversation here, which MJ said was okay. I hope you guys will listen to it all the way through and tell me what you think about some of the stuff we discuss. It starts off as a pretty standard discussion about the Mandela effect, but then it turns into something broader. I get perhaps a little bit condescending towards him as it goes on. Most of you have probably never heard me get really riled up or passionate about something before, so that factor alone might make this entertaining. I apologize that this is a strictly audio interview, so there will be no visuals after this, but you know, you can just put it on in the background or something. Anyway, without further ado, here is JJ versus MJ on the topic of conspiracy theories.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me now? Okay, that's good.
Yeah, so to start this off, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, just let everybody know who you are.
Sure. My name is JJ McCullough, and I am a YouTuber and a political commentator up here in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada.
Awesome. And then whenever you're ready, you could go ahead and start about why you don't believe in the Mandela effect.
Well, I mean, I believe in it in the sense that I believe that people often have mistaken memories about things that they're just, wrong about. What I don't accept is the premise that this is some sort of like bona fide phenomenon that deserves as much sort of time and celebration and fascination as it's been getting. I mean, the Mandela effect, as I've been able to observe it, just simply consists of people misremembering extremely trivial details about extremely trivial things that a normal person could be perfectly excused for misremembering. You know, the example, like beyond the example of Nelson Mandela himself and the sort of the one that started it all, like, you know, the vast majority of these Mandela effect supposed manifestations are, you know, just people sort of like misremembering tiny details about cartoon characters or brand logos or things like that. There's very few examples of people misremembering something at a kind of spectacular level. You know, the example, I made a video about this on my own YouTube channel, and the example I give is that, you know, a Mandela effect, quote unquote, would be like people slightly misremembering how like the Coca-Cola logo looks, right? But nobody would say something like, oh, I have a memory of Coca-Cola being like a blue type of, you know, pineapple juice, right? Like it's never at that level, which means that it's a pretty easily explainable phenomenon. If you did have a sort of mass phenomenon of a lot of people having dramatically at odds memories of extremely mainstream things, such as like, what is Coca-Cola? Who is the president of the United States? You know, how does rain work? You know, things like that. Then I would perhaps be willing to give it a little bit more time. But since it only manifests at this extraordinarily trivial level, I think that the Occam's razor explanation is just that people are misremembering stupid, petty things incorrectly because it's just not something that's worth devoting that much brain space to.
Okay, I got you. So then when you say like a mass amount of people, so with these Mandela effects, it is a mass amount of people, you know what I'm saying? Like it's like tens of thousands of people that remember something a totally different way than it was.
But it's such a tiny trivial
thing, right?
thing.
Okay.
It's not an important thing. And it's like, you know, you can pick anything in the world and you'll have tons and tons of people misremembering it if it's trivial enough to not be worth remembering. right? Like people getting, movie quotes slightly wrong is to me not a particularly fascinating or compelling social phenomenon, because it's a completely understandable thing. We all go through life, not paying obsessive attention to things that we don't deem deserving of our focused attention. So the fact that people would, get some of these sort of things, or sort of like half remember or misremember trivial information is, easily explainable by the fact that that's what we do with information that is by definition trivial.
Okay, I got you. So then, in that sense, I 100% get what you're saying. And I wanted to bring up the whole thing too, because I watched your whole video about parallel universes and your thoughts on that too.
Well, I mean, it's preposterous,
thing, right?
Okay. Like it's obviously like a ridiculous, over determined explanation for something that has such a blindingly self-obvious real world explanation. And to me, that's, I don't know, like that's a sort of symptom of, I suppose, the unseriousness of our age and the unseriousness of internet culture, and the way that, like, I think a lot of people are sort of getting kind of corrupted by the sort of lunatic misinformation and conspiracy theories. So it's not even particularly charming to me. I mean, I see it as something that's quite dark and upsetting.
So do you believe in parallel universes, or you don't?
No, of course I don't. It's a preposterous sort of theory.
Okay, so now another question I had is, this is one my subscribers, quote unquote, wanted to ask, is if like, have you ever like seen a quote unquote Mandela effect, obviously, that kind of just like blew you away, even though you don't believe in them in a sense?
No, I mean, it never blows me away because they never manifest at a level that's truly impressive. It's just kind of like you hear it and you're like, oh, well, I guess I was wrong about that. Like I saw someone posting this on Instagram the other day, and it was like, do you remember there being a sort of like a burglar emoji, like a little burglar with a bag and, wearing a stripy shirt with like a mask on his face, like the Hamburglar. And Right. It's like, that never existed. Welcome to Mandela effect. And it's like, okay, like I thought that there was that emoji, but I guess I was wrong. Like I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of emojis. So, I could sort of shrug it off and be like, that's interesting. I guess I was wrong about that. But my instinct is to not think that this is some wildly fascinating social phenomenon deserving of like, all of this time and attention. It makes sense that might be something that I just, didn't follow that carefully and thus would have a sort of false memory of.
So I was actually going to bring up the robber emoji when I was going to ask you about the Mandela effects, like I mentioned earlier. The whole thing about the phenomenon and stuff is that a lot of people remember the robber emoji, yet there never was one. So how does it happen to the fact where so many people remember something, and it's not just one person, it's like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, but it was never there. We all have the same like image of that robber emoji.
But I mean, like, how many emojis are there, my friend? Like, there's dozens and dozens of emojis of every like stereotypical profession and sort of the human archetype. There's like, I can't even say like off the top of my head, like, is there an astronaut emoji? Like, it wouldn't surprise me if there was, but I could also believe that there might not be one. Like, I might, like right now, you and I could probably imagine what an astronaut emoji might look like, but could we say with gun to our head certainty that emoji actually exists or not? No, because we haven't bothered to devote that much mind space to something so trivial. So it's like, there's lots of things that, you can accept the premise that thing might exist and it might look a certain way. And you can sort of apply this to any number of, logos, cartoon characters, movie quotations, the list goes on and on and on. But it's ultimately not important information. And that's why we can have sort of, misrememberings of it, or, false memories of it, or whatever sort of like exaggerated sort of lofty title you want to give to it. But at the end of the day, it is just not important information. And that's why our brain does not store it accurately, if at all.
Okay. I completely get what you're saying to the point.
Well, why don't you agree with me, my friend? Like, what am I saying that?
Okay, because the Mandela effect is a theory, right? It's a theory that even though you could bring up these statistics and these facts, you can't really prove it to be right or wrong. Just like gravity. Gravity is just a theory. It's the relative theory, but it's still just a theory. It's not a fact because they can't prove how gravity works.
So can I cut you off here for a second? How old are you?
I am 20. I'm 20.
So you're a young man, right? I'm 36, right?
Yeah, no
And it's
problem.
like, it's important that, as you go through life and as you become a sort of mature person, that you engage with the world as it actually exists. And you sort of not allow yourself to go down these like ridiculous rabbit holes of entertaining sort of preposterous pseudoscience, right? Because it's ultimately not going to lead to a good place. We've seen these sort of, these riots in the Capitol buildings sort of launched by people who have allowed their brains to become like basically rotted by misinformation, by pseudoscience, by crackpot conspiracy theories. And when I talk to young people like you, it really troubles me that like a lot of you guys are sort of getting into this stuff, like spending so much time online and getting so into stuff that is just absolute nonsense. And it's like, I would hope that you sound like an intelligent young man, that you would realize that at some level, this is just nonsense. Like, this is preposterous. There are so many more important things that you as a young man could be filling your life with rather than entertaining or even having a conversation with somebody like me about a concept as obviously stupid and pointless and just a product of like idiots on the internet who have too much time on their hand and have thus woven a simple phenomenon of people misremembering trivial nonsense into some like grand phenomenon of parallel universes or whatever. So like, I would hope that you have at least some, I'm not trying to beat up on you specifically, but it's just like, this is a phenomenon of internet culture, of young people, that I think really has a very sinister dark side, and that it's important that people be able to sort of pull themselves from the brink of it before they start spiraling deeper and deeper and deeper into other more sinister, more nefarious forms of conspiratorial thinking and pseudoscience and the rest of it.
I gotcha. And then to bring up the whole political thing, I hate political shit. Like this QAnon, this riots, I fucking think it's stupid. So
yeah, but you can see how it's.
I just think that's completely stupid. More with the Mandela effect.
It's part of the same phenomenon, right? It's part of the same phenomenon, right? Like, I would want you to understand that, right? Like, once you start going down the path of entertaining crap like the Mandela effect, it can easily lead to stuff like QAnon if you're not careful, because it's all based on the premise of rejecting objective truth, of rejecting like objective evidence, and sort of empirical science and data and all of this other kind of stuff, Occam's razor logic and all the rest of it. It's about sacrificing all of that in favor of conspiratorial thinking. And that is dangerous. And that is why, like I said, like Mandela effect and sort of having conversations like this, it's not a purely innocent thing. It can be quite sinister.
Okay. I could agree on your logic right there. I'm not doing this in order to, I just think, like you said, in entertainment purposes, it just kind of makes you think of the world as like a mysterious place in a sense, if you get what I'm saying. So I'm not trying to, how do I say it?
You're not trying to do anything, but that's part of the problem, right?
Okay.
It's that like, if you're not careful, if you don't sort of think, if you don't think about sort of like the consequences where this type of thinking can lead, right? That's sort of my point, is it's this type of thinking, this type of engaging with the world around us that requires a kind of rejection of truth, a rejection of observable fact in favor of sort of grand conspiratorial, sort of magical thoughts about the world. And that, once you sort of start going down that path, you can wind up, before you know it, as a lunatic storming the Capitol because you're convinced that the American government is run by Satan-worshipping, pedophiles.
So do you think the world is like, has these mysterious things like this, or no?
I think that there are obviously mysterious phenomena in the world, but I think that it's important that we be able to sort of reserve that kind of language and that kind of analysis for the phenomenon that are truly mysterious and are truly without explanation. People slightly misremembering movie quotes or corporate logos does not fit into that category.
Okay, for sure. I could definitely see your side of the story. This is exactly why I wanted to get someone on that has a different side of the story, because there's always two sides of the story, right? And it's always good to look at both sides.
No. I'm sorry, my friend. There are not always two sides to the story, and that's style. No, okay. It's true. Okay. Like, that style of thinking is wrong and bad and can lead to very destructive consequences. If we talk about, did the Nazis, kill 6 million Jews in the Holocaust? That is an objective truth. That happened. The Nazis did that. There are not two sides of the story. If you were making a video about the Holocaust, you would be doing a tremendous disservice to your audience and everyone else if you had, a historian of the Holocaust and then a Holocaust denier, and you gave them equal time and you said, well, you know, there's two sides to the story. No, that's the wrong sort of answer. And I think like that's an example of the kind of dangerous sort of faux intellectual, kind of faux open-mindedness that can result in some very dark and sinister things. Sometimes there's just truth, and sometimes people just have to accept truth and then not believe that they can sort of exist in their own sort of fantasy magical world of their own imagination, in which their sort of fantastical beliefs have equal weight to what is objective reality.
So again, 100% get what you're saying. You're really intelligent, as I could tell. So I'm glad I'm having this conversation. I'm talking about more two sides of the story with things like this, and like right versus wrong. Like obviously to me and you, to a lot of people, almost the whole world, the Holocaust, 100% wrong. But to the Nazis that were doing it, they didn't see it as wrong because they believed in these Jews as being like some
and they were wrong,
right?
Like their whole moral belief system was abhorrent and wicked and evil, and we can say that with confidence and certainty, and we should be able to say that with confidence and certainty,
100%,
because
right.
Otherwise you're living in some sort of postmodern sort of nihilistic universe in which there is no truth and there is no morality, and everybody's random opinions is as good as anyone's else, and you can't have a civilization when you start sort of thinking that way. So it's very important, and I like it bothers me. I don't mean to sort of make you into some sort of symbol because I don't know you, right?
Yeah,
but it does trouble me that there are a lot of young people who are just, I guess because you guys get just a really bad education, frankly. I think from a lot of your teachers, your school system, I think has gotten a lot worse, frankly. And I think, frankly, a lot of you kids spend a lot of time online in a way that, say, my generation just didn't. And that the internet has become a much more sort of nefarious place than it was, even when I was your age. That you can spend time on these message boards and forums and, chat groups and all this kind of stuff where people just really traffic in a lot of nonsense. And I get it, because when you're young, the world is an unfamiliar place. And it's kind of, and a lot of this stuff is kind of fun, and it's fun. Like I remember, like when I was a young kid, like I used to, this is how old I am. I used to listen to the radio every night, right? And there was this radio show. There was a radio show called Coast to Coast AM, and it was a call-in show, and people could call in with all of their theories about like angels and UFOs and Bigfoots and all this kind of stuff. And like as a young person, that was like super fascinating to me, and I was really into it. And as I got older, I realized a lot of these people that were calling in were like mentally ill, or were liars, or were, attention seekers or some form or another. So but the problem is now that I feel, like that was one radio show I could listen to every evening. But now you kids, like you can spend all day online, get sort of bombarded with this stuff constantly, live in these little communities in which sort of, live in subreddits or Discord forums, or, listen to YouTube channels or whatever, and just get percolate in nonsense 24/7. And that's a very sort of troubling thing, I think. And it's just, I think that a lot of sort of young people have to be a little bit more self-aware of what they're learning, what they're spending their time consuming, because ultimately you are what you consume. And if your information diet is all pseudoscience and nonsense, well, then that says a pretty dark thing about the sort of person you're going to grow up to be.
So, okay, you are very interesting to me now because me and you are like two totally opposite people, as in the way we think and the way we see things. And so can I ask you a couple more questions about totally different things that aren't Mandela effect related?
All right. No, it's fine. I mean, like, because I'm happy to talk to you as well, because, I don't get a chance to talk to a lot of people that I think sort of represent the kind of universe that you come from.
Right. Okay. So you mentioned aliens and these people with like these mental illnesses and stuff. Do you believe in aliens in a higher life form and stuff like that?
I mean, I think that it's obviously possible, but I don't think that we have any like compelling evidence to make us believe it. Right. So I think that like you can sort of say that theoretically, like, are we alone in the universe? Well, the universe is however big, and so therefore it's, statistically unlikely that we'd be the only form of intelligent life, and yada, 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 right? But at the same time, like, believing that might be theoretically possible in an abstract sense is very different than believing that the sort of lunatics who, say, called into the radio show I listened to when I was, 15 years old are somehow persuasive evidence that this phenomenon actually exists. right? So I think, there's an old saying where they sort of say extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. And I don't think that we've seen extraordinary proof of the existence of aliens, which is not to say that there has never been sort of inexplicable, photographs of unidentified flying objects. Even the Air Force and stuff acknowledges that there have been unidentified, objects in the sky.
Right, but then UFOs are different than aliens because it could just be anything from like anybody.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Precisely.
So then I want to bring up, because we're on the aliens. Do you remember last year, Bob Lazar, he blew up about, he called into a radio show, as you mentioned, so it's perfect that we're on the topic. A bunch of years ago, saying he worked at Area 51 before the existence of Area 51 was confirmed, and all this stuff about UFOs. And then later, obviously, it was confirmed that Area 51 was real, and then this whole documentary came out. So do you think, in a sense, that Bob Lazar was telling the truth about seeing these UFOs, seeing these aliens, seeing what they worked on and all that stuff? Or are you like skeptical on that too?
Well, I'm not really super familiar with the details of what you're talking about. I mean, what I can tell you, though, is that this is one of the good things about getting older, is that you realize like how many of the stories get repeated over and over again, and like how many of these sorts of phenomenon occur, repeatedly over the decades, and how things that might seem shocking and surprising and exciting to you as a young person might actually be stories that have happened many times in previous decades. So, Area 51 is not something new. Like Area 51 conspiracy theories have existed, since the Roswell crash in like the 1940s or whatever, right? So like this is nothing new. And neither is the phenomenon of people coming forward and claiming that they worked at Area 51 and claiming that they have all this explosive evidence about it. Like that's not something new at all. Like I remember even when I would listen to the Coast to Coast AM, people would call in all the time claiming to be, Area 51 former employees and having all of this sort of exclusive knowledge. And you can look on Amazon and you'll find all sorts of books written by tell-all Area 51 former employees, that were written in I'm sure it goes back to like the 60s, the 70s. Like people have been doing it forever. So I'm not familiar with the specific details of the man that you're describing. But, just having seen this sort of thing happen many times, even within my own lifetime, like it doesn't make me particularly impressed or shocked or even, all that interested.
Awesome. Well, that's about all the time that I was planning on doing this. I already asked you everything about the Mandela effect and a little bit more. So yeah, I mean, I get your sense of thinking, and I love seeing the other side of things because, again, like I want to get it, whether you said it's like there's no two sides, whatever, we have different beliefs on that, doesn't matter. I just love seeing another person's point of view than mine. So I appreciate you coming on and being able to explain it to everybody. And
all I would say just quickly is that like, just think very seriously about the sort of person that you want to be. You're a young man now, you're sort of at a sort of a very important turning point in your life. And the decisions you make now will affect the sort of decisions that you'll make in the future. And more importantly than that, they'll affect, who you are, what your identity will be as a grown up. And it's just something that's really worth taking seriously, because if you make bad decisions in your early 20s, you can wind up as a pretty bad person in your 30s.
I'm already seeing it happen to a lot of people I know.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. Well, it was nice talking to you. I appreciate it.
Likewise. Take care, man.